I was a little impressed by the weatherman this past week. Yeah, I was. Weatherman said we were going to get snow, and guess what? By golly, we got snow. We had about 14 inches earlier in the week, last week, and then toward the end of the week, we had about another 3 or 4. Weatherman said somewhere between 3 and 6. Well, we got 4. Good for them. It wasn't always that way, was it? I remember growing up, you couldn't trust the weatherman to be right on anything. Wow. But the good news is weathermen have become a little bit more dependable as of late. Their credibility has gone up in my book. I actually turn now to watch the weatherman on one of the local news channels around here just to see whether or not we're getting snow. Sometimes they're off on how much. I get it. But they're pretty spot on nowadays. They say that, yeah, we're going to get snow. Learn to depend on that weatherman or that television station up in Harrisburg for their weather forecasting. As we are going through our look at 52 different Christian characteristics this week, we are actually going to spend some time talking about the Christian attribute of dependability. Interesting topic. And we're going to take a look at dependability all this week. I hope you can join me. My name is Pastor Greg, and what you are watching is called Transforming the World. So, dependability. Dependability is someone or something that is reliable or trustworthy. I would say I have an old pickup truck that would fit that bill. Kind of dependable and trustworthy most of the time. I mean, it is an antique, so you got to do what you have to do to keep that old antique running. I understand that. But for the most part, that old pickup truck of mine has been very dependable. It is 20 years old and been pretty dependable over the years. I won't tell you what brand it is, because as soon as I do, you'll come up with some kind of a joke about, oh, those aren't dependable. So we're not going to go into whether or not it is or not. We're not going to talk about brand loyalty. Dependability, something that is reliable, trustworthy, can be described as solid, can be described as steady. When you're looking at it from a person's standpoint, that person can be said to be a very sure individual. Now, I have been before I was in pastoral ministry, I was in management. I was a department head. I was a department assistant supervisor. I was program director at a radio station. So I've had individuals. I've done hiring. I've had to do firing over the years. And I have noticed a trend. This one really caught me off guard back in 2019 when I was in between churches and working at Harley Davidson. I've noticed a trend that it's becoming more and more difficult to find reliable, trustworthy, dependable people in our world today. I don't know why, but it seems very, very difficult. In fact, when I started working at Harley Davidson at the manufacturing plant, they had 300 positions that they needed to fill that year, back in 2019. And the plant manager, I was in a conversation with him, and the plant manager told me, he said, in order to get 300 individuals, we would have to hire about 9. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You have 300 positions open, and you need to hire not. He said, yeah, about 1 in 3, or only 1 in 3 individuals is truly dependable or trustworthy. Most of them, they get in there, they look at the job and said, I can't do this. They quit, or a lot of them have to be let go because of dependability issues. I was just shocked by that. The trend in the world. What has caused this? What has caused this trend, this untrustworthiness or lack of dependability in the world today? Well, dependability is developed in our life when we first learn to become other-focused. This was something that was ingrained in me when I was younger, that as I was working for someone, very first job that I had, I was working for a guy in town who had a lawn mowing business. He had retired and he started up this lawn mowing business, and I worked for him. I think I was making $2 an hour mowing grass. And it was always ingrained in me. My father passed this along to me that said that talking to me, he says, Greg, your effort at work is a reflection of your relationship with God, but it also is a reflection on your character as a person. And so I was taught at a young age to be thinking of my employer, to become other-focused, to start thinking about how my actions and my attitudes affected those around me. So we become dependable when we first become other-focused, when we start thinking about the lives of those that are around us. We think about how our actions and our attitudes or our untrustworthiness, for example, how that affects those that we work with or even work for. In contrast, when an individual feels that the world should cater to them, when a world should cater to their needs, that person will, that person will also place their desires ahead of the rest of the company or the rest of the people that are around. You know, an untrustworthy person, a person who is not dependable, considers their needs first. As if the company should be catering to their schedule, the company should be catering to their needs, rather than looking at themselves as a servant who is there for the good of the company. And there is a big shift in that mentality today. I'm not sure if you're seeing it, but I sure am. There is a lack of dependability in the world today. Dependability by the people in this world today. And the biggest problem and the biggest reason is because so many people in the world today are self-focused. They don't see others, as we had talked before. Their eyes are not fixed on how their actions impact the world around them or the people around them. And so consequently, when things are in, the company should be inconvenienced, not them. You follow me here? And so I learned at a very young age that I exist as a servant to serve the boss, serve the employer, serve the people that I'm working for. That I make the sacrifices. I do what is best for them because that's what I'm called to do. I am called to be as dependable as I can possibly be. I am called as first and foremost as a human being, but then also as a Christian to be trustworthy. That when somebody thinks of me, they think of a person that they can depend on. At Harley Davidson, there was a particular shift supervisor. He would stand up at his workstation and kind of shift his eyes, trying to look at the employees, but not necessarily looking, trying to make sure people were working and not slacking off. And it felt pretty good knowing that he didn't have to shift his eyes to look at me because I did everything that was in my power to do a full day's job and not slack off. Why? Because that's what I was taught to do. So dependability is an attribute that begins in our lives when we first learn to become other-focused, when we realize that the world does not revolve around us. When we first realize that there are other people out here in this world who have needs, who have pressures, who have to answer to their boss, and everything that we can do in our power, in our ability to make that other person's job a little bit easier, that's being other focused, and that's where dependability comes in. So dependability, trustworthy, steady, reliable, and sure. Would that describe you? When people think of you, would they say that you are dependable? Are you actually concerned about those that you work for and those that you work with? Are you willing to make sacrifices in your life? Are you willing to do are you willing to go above and beyond for the good of that other person, for the good of the boss, for the good of your employer? If you are, you're on the road to becoming dependable. We're going to continue to take a look at dependability. Tomorrow we'll take a look at some biblical examples of dependability, and perhaps we can learn some lessons from these people out of the Bible. In the meantime, you've been watching Transforming the World, and my name is Pastor Greg.